Hey, welcome back to the channel. You know, sometimes I get myself down a rabbit hole, and that has been the case with this Soviet-era Russian Boombox Walkman thing. Now, if you watched the last video, you'll know that by the end of that video, I still didn't have this thing working. Now, if you didn't watch that video, there's a link above. Make sure you watch it first. Well, this time, we're going to get this thing working, and it was not as simple as I thought. I've ended up with a nice novelty Russian Soviet Boombox Walkman thing. So if you want to see how I did it, the different things that I tried, because it was not an easy process, stay tuned. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This week, just a simple video. You know, we just recently took a look at this Russian boombox that everybody thought was kind of neat. It converts into a Walkman by removing the cassette deck out of it. Now, if you watched the video on this, and if you haven't, I'll leave a link above, we weren't able to get this thing working. The mechanism was kind of screwed up. There were some broken pieces in there, but I'm hoping that the electronics are okay, at least the tape head and amplifier and everything, so that we can get some sound out of it. I think, you know, it probably sounds terrible, but everybody wants to know what it sounds like, and it'll be a neat little novelty thing to have, you know, just kind of hanging out around the studio here. So somebody had the idea, one of the viewers in the comments, of using a Bluetooth cassette adapter. And you know what? I hadn't even thought about that. It's not something I've ever used before. I remember the cassette adapters back in the day to, you know, play your CD Walkman through your cassette stereo in your car. And I guess it makes sense that they would make cassette Bluetooth adapters too. I never really thought about that. So I ordered one. We'll take a look at it and we'll see if we can get it working in this boombox. Stay tuned. So this is what I picked up. Got it on Amazon for a few bucks. Says it's a cassette Bluetooth adapter. I'm hoping it's going to fit in there. I assume it has electronics in it and buttons of some sort on the side of it. So let's take a look at it and see if it works. I haven't even opened this thing up yet. It just came in. I figured I would kind of take a look at it with you guys. So let's get this thing open. I'm not expecting it to be great, but it's not going in something that's great either. So let's see what kind of manual they have here. It's not really a manual. After sales service guidance. Happy? Couple of dogs. Share your feelings. Not satisfied. Okay, well, no instructions with it. Hopefully it'll be pretty easy to figure out. All right, so this is the cassette adapter itself, and yeah, it's got a little playback head in the bottom of it there. An on-off button. Looks like an LED. A charging port because it's supposed to be rechargeable. And that's it. I mean, there is literally nothing to this thing. Comes with a little USB, like a mini USB charging cable. So let me get this thing charged up, and I guess we'll see whether it works or not. All right, so it's 3 weeks in the future me, and you see the housing that's around that playback head? That is keeping that Bluetooth cassette adapter from sitting up against that head and transferring the sound. So that's not going to work, and we're going to have to find a better way. So like everything else with this project so far, it's junk. So let's see if we can find a different way to get this done. Well, now I'm a couple of days in, and I'm determined to have my novelty Soviet Russian boombox at least do something. It's probably going to end up ridiculous, but I've invested in it this far now, so I got to do something. So what I figured I'm going to do, I have a Bluetooth amplifier board that I had actually used to convert an old drive-in speaker to Bluetooth. And I'm like, well, I could probably get that to work, because I'm not too concerned about keeping all of the electronics in here working, because the cassette mechanism is garbage, and I'm sure this stuff isn't very good. The speakers look terrible. I mean, it's not going to be anything that I will probably ever use. I'm just determined now to get this thing working somehow. I want to play 80s Russian pop in my novelty Russian boombox. So that's what we're going to do. First thing to do is get the power supply turned on, make sure that it doesn't put out the magic white smoke. So we'll get this plugged into the 240 volt socket using my death adapter, and it seems to be okay. Now the Bluetooth board I have should work anywhere from about 12 volts up to about, I think, 19 or 20 volts. So I'm going to try to use the original power supply with this thing. I want to keep it looking, I guess, as original as I can. I mean, it's all ridiculous anyway. But I should have 12 volts on the input here, and I think brown will be 12 volts. See if I can probe that and get any reading off of it. Yep, got 12 volts there. So brown is the positive 12, and green is the negative. So I think what we'll do, I'm going to turn the power off to that, disconnect it, because I don't know how well insulated that power supply is from the mains, and I sure don't want a 240 volt shock. So since I'm not particularly concerned about keeping the electronics here, let's see, I'm going to cut the wires and leave stuff in here, because if I ever do decide to put this thing back to its former glory, I would like to be able to do that and not have too much of a hassle on my hands. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut some wires and get this thing out of here. That Bluetooth board is almost the same size, so I think it will sit in here from what I've been able to tell so far. Let's get this little side panel. Looks like that comes out of there, so that's handy. Now, I will not be using the battery compartment on this. That wire is hilariously thin. So there's our power. I'm probably going to replace that headphone jack with a probably with the volume control for the Bluetooth amplifier, I think. And I could at some point replace this power plug with an external one for that. So let's see. We've got the power coming in, which I need. That is a ground, it looks like. So this goes to the speakers. Yeah, a lot of you are probably shuddering at what I'm doing, but you know, you can still get these things on eBay if you want one, and if you want to try to fix one, go ahead. But Soviet era electronics are not known for their quality, so I don't feel bad about kind of jacking this one up. Now I am going to leave these controls in here at some point. I may try to trace that out and figure it out and wire in the sound of that, but I'm just assuming this thing's going to be so terrible that I'm not really going to care about making the actual audio controls work on this thing. So okay, yeah, that just slides in there. That's pretty handy. All right, so we've got speaker connections. It's like common. Positive. Looks like it was stereo at least. All right, let's go ahead and get this stuff out of the way. And let me grab my volume board from that Bluetooth device. See if that's even going to fit in here, or if I'm going to have to modify it. The volume control is just a little knob. So if I want to get that in here, let's see what I do with my power socket. There it is. So the power socket's going to go on the bottom where it was. That slides in there. Let's see if this will work. It would be great if it just works as is. Probably won't, but hey, we can try, right? See if that, well, it fits in there. And yes, I'm not going to make little 3D printed brackets and stuff like this for it. I just want to get this little thing working. I'm determined now, after the disappointments that I've had over and over on this thing. I just want it to work. I don't really care how perfect it is or anything like that. So, all right, let's drop this back in here and see how that ends up looking. Looks like we've got a couple of channels that drops into. Perhaps. But this thing came apart a whole lot easier than it's going back together. There we go. Alright, so there's our volume control now for the Bluetooth. So we've at least got that part done. We'll have to solder a couple of wires for the power supply. These wires are just, everything in this is just hilariously thin. I mean, it's ridiculously thin. So we've got speaker wires. All right, let's go ahead and get our speaker outputs. Start getting stuff soldered up here. Alright, so now we can get our speakers hooked up. Flow some fresh solder on here. There we go. And let's see, so I got my left positive hooked up. So this is left negative. Actually, we'll need right negative as well. So we'll go ahead and take the connections off. For the right speaker. So we got left negative. So this is just going to be a kind of a little novelty project. So I'm not really taking the time to just really get this thing perfect, because I really don't expect to ever use it. A little bit of heat shrink on here. Put on that connection to protect that. All right, so now, actually, if we plug it in, it should probably work. Plug up all of our components here. All right, got the board in there. I ended up having to just put in a different power jack for it. That original power supply just does not put out enough amperage for the board to use, which is fine because I'm sure it probably wouldn't have lasted long anyway. I mean, it's a very light, cheap feeling power supply that I'm sure does not have much life left in it anyway. So I guess now we can get this thing put back together. If I can remember where screws go. There we go. And you know what? Maybe at some point I will put some lithium batteries in this. I do have a charging board for that Bluetooth amplifier, so like I said, this is more just an exercise in novelty old Soviet Russian stuff. I was determined to get it working somehow, so maybe this is the only way it will ever work. Who knows? All right, let's get it synced up and see if we can do a little demo here. All right, so let's see if I finally get my novelty Russian boombox. Now, like I said, I'm never probably going to use this thing, but I wanted to get it working. I wanted to hear what the speaker sounded like. I wanted sound coming out of this thing. So I've got it synced up to YouTube, and I've got some 80s Russian synth pop on here. Let's see if it works. It appears to be working. And you know, it really actually doesn't sound too bad for a cheap little plasticky boombox. So I guess you get what you get. This was a little project that, you know, kind of sent me down a rabbit hole with this thing. I really wanted to get it working. Everything was just trash on it. But luckily, at least now I can have kind of a conversation piece here in the studio. If I want to listen to some terrible music, I can listen to it on a terrible little boombox. So at least we got some closure on this one, right? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to like the video and subscribe. You know, it really, really helps out the channel. It means a whole lot to me when you guys are able to do that. So if you enjoyed it, please do that for me. We also have YouTube memberships available for those who are interested. But for now, that's all I've got. I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any comments or memories of this thing, comments or suggestions, except how bad I did at soldering and all that stuff. Like I said, this is just a quick throw it together kind of project. But leave everything down in the comments. It's great to talk to all of you guys. We've got a great community built up here on the channel. It's always great to hear from you. So until next time, happy Russian listening.